At 6:17 p.m., Savannah Walker stood barefoot in her tiny Columbus kitchen, 7 months pregnant with a termination letter still pinned beneath a magnet on the refrigerator. 3 weeks earlier, she had walked out of Caldwell Premier Catering with no job and only $23 left to her name. Now 12 warm lemon loaves covered her counter. Savannah gripped her grandmother's dented measuring cup as her phone began to ring. "Is this Savannah Walker?" a woman asked. "Yes. My name is Claire Caldwell." A pause followed. "Your former boss is my husband." Savannah's smile vanished. "Before we continue, tell us what country you're watching from and your local time. And if stories about ordinary people finding room to rise mean something to you, consider subscribing." Because Savannah had no idea why Claire Caldwell was calling. 3 weeks earlier, Savannah Walker's first alarm went off at 4:50 a.m. She silenced it before the second vibration could disturb the woman in the apartment next door, then lay still for several seconds, one hand resting over the curve of her stomach. Her daughter moved. "Morning to you, too," Savannah whispered. The bedroom was dark, except for the orange glow of a street lamp slipping through the blinds. August humidity had settled over Columbus overnight, and the old window air conditioner rattled like it had screws to spare. Savannah sat up carefully. At 32 and nearly 7 months pregnant, standing had become a deliberate process. Feet on the floor, one hand against the mattress. Breathe. Push. By 5:06, oatmeal was simmering on the stove. Her lunch was already packed, leftover chicken rice, half an apple, and a bottle of water. On the refrigerator hung a handwritten list of expenses: rent, electric, car insurance, prenatal vitamins, gas. Beside each one was a number. Savannah knew exactly where nearly every dollar she earned was going before it ever reached her checking account. At 5:31, she carried her work bag downstairs to a faded silver 2008 Honda Civic. The passenger side window sometimes refused to close, and the check engine light had been glowing for 6 months, but the car started. That was enough. Caldwell Premier Catering occupied a low brick building on the industrial side of Columbus where delivery trucks began moving before sunrise. Savannah arrived at 5:52. Her shift started at 6. She had been early almost every day for 8 years. Her grandmother, Dorothy Walker, used to say that when money was scarce, reputation became something you guarded carefully. "You may not own much," Dorothy had once told her, "but you own your name." Savannah had never forgotten it. Inside the preparation kitchen, fluorescent lights reflected against stainless steel tables. Refrigerators hummed, sheet pans clattered. Someone had already started the industrial coffee maker. Morning Mama Maya Brooks called. Maya was 26, quick-witted, and perpetually 5 minutes away from losing her hair tie. "Morning." Maya glanced at Savannah's stomach. "That baby planning on letting you work today? She doesn't contribute to rent, so she doesn't get a vote." Maya laughed. Savannah tied on her apron. Within minutes, she was weighing ingredients for breakfast pastries scheduled for a corporate meeting downtown. She liked precision. 6 ounces meant 6 ounces. A tray labeled for 40 people had 40 portions, not 38, with someone hoping nobody noticed. That discipline had made Savannah one of the most reliable workers in the building. Pregnancy had slowed her, but it had not made her careless. When Maya reached for a heavy container of flour before Savannah could lift it, Savannah raised an eyebrow. "I can still carry things." "I know." "Then why are you stealing my work? Because if you throw your back out, I'll have to listen to you complain." Savannah smiled and let her take it. She wasn't too proud to accept help. She simply hated being treated as fragile. At 9:40, Savannah entered the walk-in refrigerator and noticed several containers of blueberries that would not survive another catering cycle. She checked with the kitchen supervisor before touching them. "Can I use these for staff muffins?" The supervisor shrugged. Better than tossing them. During her break, Savannah folded the blueberries into a simple batter. From her bag, she removed an old tin measuring cup. Its handle was slightly bent, its surface scratched pale from decades of use. Maya had seen it hundreds of times. You know we have measuring cups here, right? This one behaves. It looks like it survived World War II. Savannah ran her thumb over the dent. My grandmother's. That ended Maya's teasing. Dorothy Walker had taught Savannah to bake when she was 9, not from glossy cookbooks or expensive classes. Dorothy measured flour at a yellow kitchen table while gospel music played from a radio balanced on the windowsill. Savannah could still hear her grandmother whenever she poured batter. Never fill the pan all the way. Leave a little room for it to rise. At 10:25, 12 blueberry muffins appeared in the employee break room. By 10:31, 9 were gone. Savannah took none. She preferred watching other people discover them. But lately, even small moments like that could not disguise what was happening inside Caldwell Premier Catering. The company was changing. 2 months earlier, employees had stopped receiving overtime unless management approved it in writing. Then Friday shifts shortened. Then a dishwasher named Jerome disappeared from the schedule. No announcement, no goodbye. His name simply stopped appearing. Savannah noticed because people who had spent years working in kitchens learned to notice empty stations. Ethan Caldwell had changed too. Years earlier, the owner occasionally walked through the kitchen asking employees what equipment needed replacing. Now he moved quickly between his office and conference room, usually accompanied by someone carrying spreadsheets. That morning, Savannah saw him through the glass. Ethan stood beside 2 accountants. One pointed toward a laptop screen. Ethan rubbed both hands over his face. Savannah looked away. It wasn't her business. Still at lunch, Shmaya whispered, "You heard anything about cuts?" Savannah kept eating. "No, Monica says they're cutting another department. Monica says something every Thursday." "I'm serious." Savannah looked at her. Maya really was frightened. "So am I," Savannah said softly. "But being scared before we know anything won't put another $1 in our checks." Maya stared at her sandwich. "You think we're okay?" Savannah wanted to say yes. Instead, she said, "I think we do today's work today." It was something Dorothy would have said, but Savannah's own stomach tightened as she spoke. She needed this job. Her savings were thinner than Maya knew. The baby's crib in her apartment had come from Facebook Marketplace. She had delayed replacing 2 tires because the tread could survive another month. Losing even 1 week of income would matter. By 3 o'clock, Savannah's lower back ached. At 3:48, she finished labeling containers for the following morning. At 4:03, she sanitized her station. Then her phone vibrated inside her apron. Savannah almost ignored it. Company email. She opened the message. There was only one sentence. "Please report to Mr. Caldwell's office at 4:30 p.m. Savannah read it twice. Maya noticed her face. What Savannah handed her the phone. Maya's expression changed immediately. "Oh, hell no. Don't, Savannah. We don't know what it is." "Yes, we do." Savannah took the phone back. Across the kitchen, pans continued clattering. Someone called for more onions. A delivery driver pushed a cart through the swinging doors. The world had not stopped, simply because Savannah's suddenly felt unsteady. She put the phone away. Then she picked up her cloth and continued wiping the stainless steel counter. At 4:27, Maya whispered, "You don't have to finish that." Savannah folded the cloth. "Yes, I do." She placed it where it belonged, washed her hands, and untied her apron. The dented measuring cup sat beside her bag. Savannah slipped it inside. Then she walked toward the administrative hallway at 4:29 p.m. She stopped outside Ethan Caldwell's office. Through the glass, she could see him sitting behind his desk. And directly in front of him was a white envelope with Savannah Walker's name on it. Savannah stared at the white envelope for 3 seconds before Ethan Caldwell noticed her standing outside his office. He straightened in his chair. "Come in, Savannah." She opened the glass door and stepped inside. The office smelled faintly of coffee and printer paper. Savannah had been there only twice in 8 years, once after a catering van backed into her car, and once when she received her 5-year service certificate. Neither time had there been an envelope waiting for her. "Have a seat." Savannah lowered herself carefully into the chair. Ethan closed the laptop in front of him. For a moment he said nothing. He looked older than she remembered. His tie was loose. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. A legal pad beside his computer was covered with numbers and crossed-out notes. Savannah waited. Finally, Ethan folded his hands. "I'm going to get straight to it. We've had to make some difficult operational decisions." There were phrases people used when they wanted pain to sound administrative. Savannah recognized one immediately. "Your position is being eliminated effective today." Her baby moved beneath her ribs. Savannah placed one hand over her stomach. Ethan continued speaking. "Revenue is down. 2 major accounts didn't renew. We're restructuring several areas of production." Savannah looked at the envelope. "Why my position?" Ethan hesitated. "It isn't just yours. That wasn't my question." His eyes finally met hers. "We reviewed labor requirements across the company." Savannah remained quiet. 8 years. Thousands of early mornings. Christmas Eve deliveries. Double shifts. Burned fingers held beneath cold water before she went back to work. All of it had somehow become labor requirements. She breathed slowly. Did my pregnancy factor into this decision? Ethan's posture stiffened. No, not at all. No. Savannah, this is a business decision. There it was. A clean sentence designed to close a messy conversation. Savannah looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right." Ethan seemed surprised. Perhaps he had expected anger. Perhaps tears. Perhaps bargaining. Savannah had all three somewhere inside her. But none would change what was inside the envelope. "When will I receive my final paycheck?" "Friday. My unused PTO, it will be included, and my health insurance. Coverage continues through the end of the month. There's information about continuation options in the packet." Savannah's jaw tightened. The end of the month was 11 days away. And the prenatal coverage I've already used, that shouldn't be affected. Shouldn't Ethan looked toward the papers? "I can have HR confirm it. Please do." He nodded. Savannah stood slowly. Ethan reached for the envelope. "Savannah." She stopped. "I know the timing is difficult." For the first time, something close to anger broke through her composure. "The timing is difficult." Ethan looked down. Savannah almost said more. Instead, she took the envelope. "Have HR email me the insurance details." Then she walked out. The kitchen sounded exactly as it had 20 minutes earlier. Maya was portioning roasted vegetables when she saw Savannah. She froze. Savannah walked to her station and untied her apron. "No." Savannah said nothing. "Savannah, no." She folded the apron once. Then again. Maya abandoned her station. "What did he say?" My position was eliminated. You've been here 8 years." "I know, and you're pregnant. I know that too." Maya's eyes filled with anger. "I'll go talk to him." Savannah caught her wrist. "No, this is wrong, Maya. I'll leave right now." "No, you won't." Maya stared at her. Savannah's voice softened. "Finish your shift. You need your hours. I'm not letting you walk out alone. You're not letting me do anything." That sounded sharper than Savannah intended. She released Maya's wrist. Then she touched her arm. "I'm sorry." Maya shook her head. Savannah looked around the kitchen. People were pretending not to watch. She understood. Everyone was afraid they might be next. "Finish your shift," Savannah repeated. "Call me tonight." Maya swallowed. Then she hugged her. Savannah allowed herself 3 seconds in the embrace. No more. She gathered the few things she owned, hand lotion, a phone charger, 2 pens, and the dented measuring cup that had belonged to Dorothy. Then she walked through the employee exit. Outside, late afternoon heat pressed against the parking lot. Savannah reached her Honda Civic, opened the driver's door, and sat down. She placed the termination envelope on the passenger seat. Then she closed the door. Silence. Savannah gripped the steering wheel. She had been composed in Ethan's office. Composed with Maya. Composed walking past everyone who had suddenly found something fascinating to stare at. Now there was nobody left to perform strength for. Her first tear fell onto her blouse, then another. Savannah covered her mouth. She cried for exactly what frightened her: rent insurance, the baby, the car groceries, and the humiliating possibility of having to call people she loved and admit she couldn't manage. She cried because she had done everything people told responsible adults to do. Show up, work hard, save what you can, don't cause trouble. And still one sentence could erase the paycheck her entire life depended on. After several minutes, Savannah wiped her face. She looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Okay, she whispered. Not because anything was okay, because eventually she had to drive home. That evening, Savannah sat at her kitchen table with every bill she could find. Rent was due soon. The electric bill lay beneath it. Her gas tank was nearly empty. Prenatal vitamins were running low. She opened her banking app and wrote the balance on paper. Then she subtracted what could not wait. The numbers became smaller and smaller. Savannah checked them again. There had to be a mistake. There wasn't. She opened her wallet and removed the cash inside. A 10, another 10, 3 ones, $23. Savannah laid the bills flat. For a long time she simply stared. Then she reached into her work bag. Her fingers found cold metal. She pulled out Dorothy Walker's old measuring cup and placed it beside the money. The handle was bent, the rim was scratched. Savannah remembered being 9 years old, standing on a chair beside her grandmother while batter dripped from a wooden spoon. Dorothy's voice returned with startling clarity. Leave a little room for it to rise. Savannah looked from the measuring cup to the $23. Her termination letter was still unopened beside them. Tomorrow she would have to decide what $23 could possibly become. At 7:12 the next morning, Savannah Walker was still sitting at the kitchen table. The $23 had not moved. Neither had Dorothy's measuring cup. Savannah had slept badly, waking every hour with a different calculation running through her head. If she spent $12 on groceries, she could stretch rice eggs and canned beans for several days. If she put $10 of gas into the Honda, she could drive to interviews. If she bought prenatal vitamins, almost half the money would disappear. $23 could solve several tiny problems. It could not solve the problem. Savannah opened her refrigerator. Half a carton of eggs, butter, a little milk, mustard, leftover rice, 2 apples. Then she checked the pantry. Salt, baking powder, vanilla, a small amount of brown sugar. She closed the cabinet. Her phone buzzed. Maya. You awake? Savannah typed back. Been awake. 3 dots appeared. You need anything? Savannah stared at the question. She knew what Maya meant. Money, groceries, gas. Savannah could have accepted. There was no shame in needing help. But Maya was 26, paying rent with the same shrinking hours Savannah had been working. Not yet, Savannah replied. I'm okay today. She deliberately included the last word. Today. Savannah returned to the table and turned over the termination envelope. On the blank side, she began writing. Flour, sugar, butter, lemons. She stopped. The idea had arrived some time before dawn, and she had spent 2 hours trying to talk herself out of it. Baking. Not cupcakes covered in expensive frosting. Not decorated cakes requiring equipment she didn't own. Something simple. Something she knew. Lemon brown butter loaf. Dorothy's recipe. Savannah had made it hundreds of times. The ingredients were inexpensive. The batter could be mixed by hand. The loaves kept well. She pulled out her calculator. If she bought only what she needed and used what was already in the apartment, she could make 12 miniature loaves. Maybe. Savannah wrote estimated prices beside every ingredient. Then she added them. Then added them again. This is ridiculous, she whispered. Her daughter kicked. Savannah looked down. You're supposed to be the sensible one. Another kick. Fine. At 8:26, Savannah drove to a discount grocery store 3 miles away. She carried Dorothy's measuring cup in her purse. Not because she needed it at the store, because leaving it behind felt wrong. Savannah moved through the aisles with the concentration of someone defusing a bomb. She compared flour prices by ounce, put one package of butter into her cart, then replaced it with another 12 cents cheaper. She bought a bag of lemons instead of individual fruit after calculating the difference. At the register, Savannah watched each number appear. 318, 547, 926, 1491. Her pulse quickened. When the cashier announced the total, Savannah counted the bills carefully. She did not spend all 23. That mattered. Dorothy had always said desperation made people believe every dollar needed a job immediately. Sometimes she said a few dollars needed to stand guard. Savannah returned home with several bills still folded inside her wallet. By 10:03, the butter was melting in a saucepan. She watched it foam, then darken until the kitchen filled with a warm, nutty smell. For the first time since Ethan Caldwell had pushed that envelope across his desk, Savannah's mind became quiet. Flour, sugar, eggs, lemon zest, brown butter. These were problems she understood. She reached for Dorothy's measuring cup. Its scratched rim disappeared into the flour. Savannah leveled it carefully. She could almost see Dorothy beside her. Savannah, at 9 years old, had once filled a loaf pan almost to the top because she wanted the biggest cake. Dorothy had laughed and scooped some batter back out. Leave a little room for it to rise. Savannah had rolled her eyes. Now, 23 years later, she heard every word. The old apartment oven was less cooperative. The temperature ran hot on the left side, so Savannah rotated the pans halfway through. By noon, her lower back was aching. She sat down. Old Savannah might have forced herself to continue. Yesterday had changed something. She would not prove her worth by hurting herself. 20 minutes later, she stood again. At 1:36 p.m., 12 miniature lemon loaves rested on her counter. They weren't identical. 2 leaned slightly. One had cracked down the center. But when Savannah sliced a test end from the least attractive loaf, steam escaped. She tasted it. Lemon first, then butter, then the caramel depth Dorothy had loved. Savannah closed her eyes. "Okay," she whispered. Now came the frightening part. Selling them. Her downstairs neighbor, Mr. Lewis, ran a small auto repair shop 4 blocks away. Savannah placed 6 loaves into plain food-safe bags she already owned and carried them downstairs. At Lewis Auto Repair, 3 mechanics stood around an open hood. Mr. Lewis noticed her. "Shouldn't you be at work?" Savannah paused. "Not anymore." His expression changed. She didn't explain. Instead, she lifted the bag. "I made lemon brown butter loaf. I'm trying something." One mechanic leaned over. "How much?" Savannah nearly said, "Whatever you think is fair." She stopped herself. A price was not a request for charity. $4. The mechanic reached into his pocket. "I'll take one." Savannah handed it over. $4. A second mechanic watched him open the bag. "You got another yes?" He bought one too, $8. That was all. Nobody applauded. Nobody filmed her. No wealthy stranger happened to walk through the door. Savannah simply walked back to her Honda with 10 unsold portions and $8 in her hand. She'd sat behind the wheel and unfolded the bills. $8. Small enough to disappear at a gas pump. Small enough that Ethan Caldwell probably spent more on lunch. Yet Savannah stared at them differently. Yesterday, Ethan had decided what her labor was worth to his company. Today, 2 strangers had voluntarily paid for something she had created herself. Savannah laughed softly. Then she cried a little. Not from sadness this time. She returned home and placed the $8 beside Dorothy's measuring cup. Her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. Savannah answered. "Hello, is this the lady who made those lemon cakes at Lewis Auto?" Savannah sat straighter. "Yes. My husband brought one home." A pause. Do you make them by order? Savannah looked at the remaining loaves cooling on the counter. 24 hours earlier, she had believed $23 was evidence that she had almost nothing left. Now she reached for a pen. Yes, she said, I do. The woman on the phone ordered 2 loaves. Savannah wrote the request on the back of an old utility envelope because she did not yet own an order book. Name, Mrs. Lewis. 2 lemon brown butter loaves. Pick up Friday, 5 p.m. Savannah stared at the handwriting after the call ended. It wasn't much, but it was an order placed before the product existed. Someone trusted her enough to pay for tomorrow's bread today. That changed something. Over the next week, Savannah became careful with every dollar that entered her kitchen. She didn't celebrate the first $40 by buying herself dinner. She didn't order business cards or pay someone to design a logo. She didn't buy the stand mixer she had wanted for years. She bought flour, butter, eggs, lemons, food-safe paper boxes. Then she kept the receipts. On Monday morning, Savannah taped a sheet of notebook paper inside a cabinet door. Income, expenses, what remained? She recorded everything, even $1.89 for parchment paper. If Room to Rise was going to fail, Savannah wanted to know why. The name itself came later. At first, there was no name. Customers simply called her Savannah, the lemon cake lady. One of the mechanics from Lewis Auto brought a loaf to his mother for her birthday. His mother told a neighbor. The neighbor worked nights at Riverside Methodist Hospital and ordered 6 individually wrapped slices for nurses on her floor. 2 days later, another nurse called. Then a delivery driver named Raymond ordered 2 loaves. My mother's turning 63, he explained. She hates frosting. Then we already have something in common. Savannah said. Raymond laughed. Savannah began writing names directly on plain boxes with a black marker. Happy birthday, Mrs. Green. Night shift 4 West, for Raymond's mom. Nothing matched. Nothing looked professional. But every box was clean, every order was correct, and every customer received what Savannah promised. By the second week, her kitchen table had become an unofficial dispatch center. Her phone sat beside a spiral notebook. Monday 3 loaves. Tuesday 8. Wednesday 4. Friday 14. Savannah was earning money. Not enough to relax, but enough to breathe differently. She paid for her prenatal vitamins. She put $15 of gas into the Honda. She bought groceries without calculating whether she could afford both eggs and fruit. One afternoon, Maya arrived after work carrying 2 iced teas. She stopped in the doorway. Okay. Savannah looked up from zesting lemons. What happened in here? Boxes covered 1 chair. Cooling racks occupied the counter. A handwritten schedule was taped to the refrigerator beside the termination letter. Savannah shrugged. I've been baking. Maya picked up the notebook. You've been building a small corporation. Put that down. Maya grinned. Then she saw the total at the bottom of the page. Her expression softened. Savannah. Don't. I'm proud of you. I said don't. Fine. I'm deeply disappointed in your unexpected competence. Better? Maya helped fold boxes while Savannah told her about the orders. Then Maya asked, what's the business called? Savannah stopped. The business, yes. Businesses usually have names. I sell lemon loaf from an apartment. So Savannah looked toward Dorothy's measuring cup. It sat beside the mixing bowl, scratched and dented. She remembered Dorothy tapping the edge of an overfilled pan. Leave a little room for it to rise. Savannah smiled. Room to rise. Maya looked at her. Room to rise baking. That Maya said is actually good, I know, but growth brought problems almost immediately. Savannah's apartment oven could bake only a few loaves at once. The left side ran nearly 20 degrees hotter than the right. Her refrigerator was filling with ingredients. Her feet were swelling more often. And customers were beginning to request quantities she couldn't reasonably produce. Thursday afternoon, a woman called asking for 48 individual loaves for a church anniversary. Savannah looked around her kitchen. 48 loaves meant hours standing, multiple baking cycles, more refrigerator space than she had. She needed the money, badly. For several seconds, she nearly said yes. Then her daughter shifted inside her. Savannah rested a hand against her stomach. "I'm sorry," she told the customer. "I can't responsibly take 48 for Saturday." "You can't, I can do 20. The woman sounded disappointed. Savannah's chest tightened. She could hear money disappearing. "I really need 48, I understand." There was silence. "All right, I'll find someone else." When the call ended, Savannah sat down. She hated that decision. For the next hour, she questioned it. Maybe she could have stayed up late. Maybe Maya could have helped. Maybe she had just turned away the order that could have changed everything. Then Savannah remembered Ethan. Revenue down, labor requirements, business decision. She had spent 8 years inside a system where numbers eventually mattered more than people. She would not build another version of it with herself, as the first person being exploited. That evening she wrote 3 words beneath "Room to Rise Baking." "Do it right." The following morning, a teacher named Mrs. Parker posted a photograph of Savannah's lemon loaf in a neighborhood group. By lunchtime, Savannah had 7 messages. One came from a woman asking whether she could ship. Another wanted 12 loaves for a baby shower. The last request was simple: 1 assorted box, 6 portions. Deliver Saturday afternoon. Savannah checked the address. Upper Arlington. It was farther than her usual delivery area, but the customer had already agreed to the delivery fee. The name attached to the order was simply C. Caldwell. Savannah stared at it briefly. Caldwell was common enough. She had spent too many nights worrying about Ethan already. She closed the message. Saturday morning, Savannah lined a plain craft paper box with parchment. She placed lemon brown butter slices inside, along with 2 cinnamon pecan portions she had recently started testing. No logo decorated the lid. Only neat handwriting. "Room to Rise Baking, Savannah Walker." She tied the box with inexpensive kitchen twine. Before leaving, she touched Dorothy's measuring cup. 6 pieces, she whispered. Nothing dramatic. Across town, however, Claire Caldwell was about to open that ordinary box, and the smell of brown butter and lemon would carry her backward several years to one of the darkest afternoons of her life, and to a young kitchen employee whose name she had never learned. Claire Caldwell almost didn't open the box. It sat on the marble counter in her Upper Arlington kitchen while afternoon sunlight moved slowly across the floor. Her friend Ellen had sent her the recommendation 2 days earlier. "You have to try this woman's lemon loaf." Claire had ordered mostly to be polite. For years, food had been complicated for her. Not eating it, remembering it. There had been a time when Claire could walk into a commercial kitchen and identify browned butter from 20 feet away. Before Caldwell, Premier Catering had become a company with trucks, account managers, and quarterly forecasts. Claire had stood beside Ethan in a rented church kitchen at midnight, rolling pastry dough by hand. They had built the company together. Ethan handled sales, Claire handled food. They had been 30 years old, exhausted and broke, arguing over invoices while sharing sandwiches over a prep table. Somewhere along the way, the business grew larger than the life they had built around it. Then Claire became pregnant. For 22 weeks, she imagined a child growing up around kitchens. She bought a tiny yellow onesie. She kept the ultrasound photograph inside her cookbook. And then suddenly, there was no child to bring home. People became gentle around her afterward. Too gentle. Every conversation seemed to begin with lowered voices. "How are you doing? Do you want to talk?" "Take all the time you need." Claire knew they meant well, but grief had turned her into something people approached as if she were made of cracked glass. 6 weeks later, she returned to Caldwell Premier Catering. She lasted 43 minutes. Someone in accounting hugged her without asking. Another employee immediately began crying. Ethan checked on her 4 times. Claire finally escaped into the employee break room. She sat alone at a table and stared at a vending machine. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. She wasn't hungry. Mostly she wanted 5 minutes during which nobody knew what had happened to her. The break room door opened. A young kitchen employee entered carrying a tray. Claire recognized her face. but not her name. Savannah Walker was 20-something, then wearing a white kitchen coat and a flower streak across one sleeve. She stopped when she saw Claire. Claire prepared herself. Another sympathetic expression. Another careful question. Instead, Savannah looked at the untouched coffee in front of her. "You eaten?" Claire blinked. "What today?" Claire almost laughed. "No." Savannah placed the tray on the counter. She cut a slice from a small lemon loaf. Then she put it on a napkin and set it in front of Claire with a cup of water. Claire stared at it. Savannah didn't sit down. She didn't ask what had happened. She didn't say she was sorry. "You don't have to talk," Savannah said, "but you shouldn't sit here hungry." Then she returned to the tray. Claire looked at her. "Did you make this?" Savannah nodded. "My grandmother's recipe. It smells good. That's the brown butter." Savannah picked up the tray. At the door, she glanced back. "Eat half. If you hate it, throw the rest away when I'm gone so you don't hurt my feelings." Claire actually smiled. It was the first time she remembered smiling since the hospital. She ate the entire slice. Savannah never knew. Years passed. Claire gradually withdrew from daily operations at Caldwell Premier Catering. People assumed she wanted an easier life. The truth was more complicated. The kitchens reminded her of who she had been before the loss. Ethan filled the space she left behind. At first, Claire told herself it was temporary. Then 1 year became 3. 3 became 6. She remained a co-owner on paper, but Ethan increasingly made decisions without consulting her. Their marriage survived, though sometimes Claire wondered whether survival and living were the same thing. Now, years later, she stood in her own kitchen looking at a plain craft paper box. "Room to Rise Baking, Savannah Walker." Claire frowned. The name tugged at something. She opened the lid. 6 portions rested on parchment. She picked up the lemon slice. Before tasting it, she smelled the browned butter. And suddenly she was back in that break room, a vending machine humming, cold coffee, a woman in a flower-streaked kitchen coat saying, "You don't have to talk." Claire lowered the slice. "No." She looked at the label again. Savannah Walker. Her hands began trembling. Claire took one bite. Lemon, butter, a slight caramel note, not identical to the slice from years ago, but close enough. She carried the box into her study and opened her laptop. Searching the name took less than a minute. Room to Rise. Baking had a small community page. A few photographs showed simple boxes, cooling racks, and Savannah standing beside a folding table. Claire recognized her immediately. Older, pregnant, but unmistakably the same woman. Claire leaned back. "What happened to you?" That evening, Ethan came home after 8. He dropped his keys into a bowl. Claire was waiting in the dining room. "Do you know Savannah Walker?" Ethan stopped. The hesitation answered before he did. "She worked in prep." Ethan loosened his tie. "We had reductions." Claire stared at him. "You fired her. Her position was eliminated. She's pregnant." Ethan's expression hardened. "Claire, don't." "Don't what?" "Turn this into something it isn't." "What is it?" "A business decision." Claire went very still. She had heard Ethan use that phrase before. Usually before explaining something he did not want to feel. How long had she worked for us? I don't know. 7 years. 8. 8 years. We're losing accounts. "And you fired a pregnant employee who had been there 8 years. I eliminated multiple positions." Claire looked at him. For the first time, she wondered how many names had disappeared while she wasn't paying attention. "Did you know she started selling baked goods?" Ethan frowned. "No." Claire closed her laptop. She didn't tell him about the lemon loaf. She didn't tell him about the break room. Not yet. Later that night, after Ethan went upstairs, Claire returned to the kitchen. 1 slice remained. Beside the box was Savannah's phone number. Claire picked up her phone, then stopped. Writing a check would be easy. Too easy. It would also reduce Savannah to someone waiting to be rescued. Claire remembered the woman who had placed food in front of her years ago without asking for anything. What had Savannah actually given her that day? Not money, not advice. Room. Claire suddenly thought of the old commercial kitchen behind the Franklin Community Hall. Her family still held the lease. The ovens were inspected. The space sat empty most nights. Claire looked again at Savannah's number. There was a difference between carrying someone and opening a door. At 6:16 the next evening, she finally called. Across Columbus, Savannah was standing among cooling loaves when her phone began to ring. 1 minute later, Claire would say the words Savannah least expected to hear. "My name is Claire Caldwell." "Well, a breath. Your former boss is my husband." For several seconds, Savannah said nothing. The kitchen suddenly seemed too quiet. Behind her, 12 lemon loaves rested on cooling racks. The old oven clicked as it cooled. A thin stripe of evening sunlight crossed the counter and caught the scratched surface of Dorothy Walker's measuring cup. Savannah tightened her grip on the phone. "Your husband?" "Yes," Claire said. "Ethan Caldwell." Savannah's first instinct was fear. She looked at the boxes stacked near the refrigerator. Had Ethan discovered room to rise? Was there some company rule she had forgotten? Could he accuse her of using a recipe from Caldwell Premier Catering? The lemon loaf had been Dorothy's long before Savannah worked there, but businesses had lawyers, and Savannah had $7 and some change in the emergency envelope above her refrigerator. What is this about? Claire heard the change in her voice. "You're not in trouble. That usually means somebody thinks I might be." "No, Savannah, Ethan doesn't know I'm calling." That wasn't particularly comforting. Savannah pulled out a chair and sat. "How did you get my number I ordered from you?" Savannah frowned. Then she remembered. "C. Caldwell." "Yes." "The Upper Arlington order." "Yes." Savannah glanced at the refrigerator where her handwritten delivery list still hung. "Did something happen with the food, hon? The food is why I called." Claire paused. "That lemon loaf? Have you been making it a long time, my grandmother taught me?" Savannah went still. "How do you know her name? You told me once." "I did years ago." Claire took a breath. Then she described the break room, the untouched coffee, the vending machine, the slice of lemon loaf. Savannah listened without interrupting. "You told me I didn't have to talk," Claire continued. "You said I shouldn't sit there hungry." Savannah's expression softened. A fragment returned. A woman alone at a table, red eyes, hands wrapped around cold coffee. Savannah had known Claire was connected to management, but she hadn't known what had happened. "I remember the room," Savannah said. "You remember me, kind of." Claire laughed once quietly. "That may be the nicest thing you could have said. I'm sorry you really don't remember. Not much." Savannah hesitated. "I remember you looked like you needed people to stop asking questions." Claire closed her eyes. "Yes." Neither woman spoke for a moment. Then Claire told her. Not every detail, just enough. She had been pregnant. She had lost the baby. That afternoon had been her first attempt to return to work. Savannah lowered her eyes toward her own stomach. "I didn't know." "I know. I'm sorry, thank you." Claire's voice remained steady. "But that's not why I'm calling." Savannah waited. "I found out Ethan eliminated your position." Savannah's shoulders stiffened again. "If you're calling to apologize for him, I'm not." The answer came quickly. Savannah stopped. "Ethan is responsible for Ethan," Claire said. "If he owes you an apology, it needs to come from him." That surprised Savannah. Claire continued. "And I'm not calling to offer you money." Savannah almost smiled. "I wasn't going to ask. I know, how? Because you made me the piece of cake when you probably weren't earning enough to comfortably give food away, and you never even bothered making sure I remembered your name." Savannah looked down at Dorothy's measuring cup. So why are you calling?" Claire took a breath. "My family has the lease on a commercial kitchen behind Franklin Community Hall." Savannah said nothing. "It used to be rented to a meal prep company. They moved out 4 months ago. The hall uses it occasionally during the day, but most evenings it sits empty. Savannah's eyes moved toward her apartment oven. Claire continued, "The inspections are current. There are commercial ovens, refrigeration, stainless prep tables, dry storage." Savannah's heart began beating faster. "What are you offering 3 months of evening access?" "For free." No, Savannah relaxed slightly. That answer mattered. What would it cost? You'd cover the actual additional utilities cleaning requirements and your portion of the use insurance, nothing beyond that for the first 3 months. Savannah reached for a pen. How much? Claire gave her an estimate. Savannah wrote it on the back of an order slip. It was not nothing, but it was far below the hourly commercial kitchen rates she had seen online. "What do you get out of this?" Savannah asked. Claire was silent. "I mean it," Savannah continued. "Do you want part of the business, not percentage of sales? No, your name on anything, no." Then why? Claire looked at the half-empty room-to-rise box sitting on her own counter. "Years ago you saw somebody sitting alone and gave her something she needed. It was cake." "No." Claire's voice softened. "It was 5 minutes where nobody treated me like a tragedy." Savannah stopped writing. "I've remembered that afternoon for years," Claire said. "You apparently barely remember it. I was just being decent." "Exactly." Savannah swallowed. Claire continued, "I can't fix what happened to you, and I don't think I should try, but I have access to a door that you're currently standing outside of." Savannah's eyes burned unexpectedly. She refused to let the tears fall. "I can open it," Claire said. "Walking through is your decision." Savannah looked around the tiny kitchen. Cooling racks occupied almost every usable surface. A sack of flour sat beneath a chair because there was nowhere else to put it. For 2 weeks she had been asking herself how much longer this apartment could hold what room to rise was becoming. Now an answer had appeared. That frightened her almost as much as losing the job had. "I need everything in writing," Savannah said. Claire smiled. "Good. I want to see the insurance requirements." "Absolutely. And I need to inspect the kitchen before I agree." "Of course. I'm not accepting anything I can't eventually afford at a normal rate." Claire's smile widened. "Savannah, yes, I think we're going to understand each other." They arranged to meet Saturday morning. When the call ended, Savannah remained at the table. Her hand drifted toward her stomach. The baby moved. Savannah looked at the measuring cup. 3 weeks ago, $23 had seemed like the edge of a cliff. Now someone had opened a door, but Savannah understood something important. A door was not a rescue. Beyond it waited permits, costs, mistakes, long nights, and the terrifying possibility that her baking might never become enough. Savannah picked up Dorothy's measuring cup. "Leave a little room for it to rise," she whispered. Then she looked at the 12 loaves cooling in front of her. Saturday morning she would see just how much room there really was. Saturday morning, Savannah arrived at Franklin Community Hall 11 minutes early. The building was nothing like the polished commercial kitchens she had imagined after Claire's phone call. It was a squat brick structure on the east side of Columbus, squeezed between a Baptist church and a tire shop. The sign above the entrance had faded around the edges, and weeds pushed through cracks in the parking lot. Savannah liked it immediately. Nothing about the place promised miracles. Claire was already waiting beside a blue side door. "You're early, so are you." Claire smiled. "Fair?" She unlocked the door. The commercial kitchen smelled faintly of stainless steel and industrial cleaner. Savannah stopped just inside. 2 6-burner ranges stood against one wall. There were 3 commercial ovens, a walk-in refrigerator, deep sinks, metal shelving, and long preparation tables. The equipment wasn't new. One oven handle had been repaired with mismatched screws. Several shelves were scratched. The tile near the dishwashing station had been replaced in a different shade. But compared with Savannah's apartment kitchen, it looked enormous. Claire watched her carefully. "Well," Savannah walked towards the ovens. "Do they hold temperature?" Claire blinked. "I think so." Think I can show you the inspection records. Savannah opened an oven door. What about the refrigerator? Serviced last month? Pest control monthly. Storage. Claire pointed toward several empty shelves. Savannah inspected those too. Claire eventually laughed. What, I expected you to be excited. I am. You have an unusual way of showing it. Savannah closed the refrigerator. Excitement doesn't tell me whether the freezer seal works. Claire nodded slowly. That may be why you'll make this work. Maybe. Savannah wasn't ready to promise more. They sat at one of the stainless steel tables. Claire removed a folder from her bag. Inside was a simple, temporary use agreement. Savannah read every page. 3 months of evening access. Utilities calculated according to usage. Cleaning requirements, liability coverage, storage restrictions. No ownership claim by Claire or Caldwell Premier Catering. No percentage of sales. No automatic renewal. Savannah reached the final page and went back to the beginning. Claire waited. You really do read contracts. I started after yesterday. Claire didn't ask what she meant. Savannah tapped one paragraph. This says I'm responsible for any damage caused during my access hours. Yes. I want photographs of the equipment condition before I start. That's reasonable. And this clause about insurance, I need to know exactly what policy qualifies. I have the contact information. Savannah looked at her. You've thought this through. I was hoping you would, too. Savannah signed only after Claire added the equipment documentation agreement in writing. Then Claire extended her hand. Savannah shook it. Not donor and recipient. 2 women agreeing to terms. That distinction mattered. The following week humbled Savannah. She had assumed the hard part would be baking enough product. It wasn't. The hard part was everything surrounding the baking. Business registration, food safety requirements, insurance, ingredient records, sales tax questions, approved storage, labels, invoices. Savannah spent hours reading government pages until the words blurred together. One evening she called Claire. I think I've made a mistake. What happened? Nothing. That's the problem. I've been filling out forms for 3 hours and haven't touched flour. Claire laughed. Welcome to owning a business. That isn't encouraging. It wasn't intended to be. Claire did not complete the forms for her. Instead, she gave Savannah contact information for a local small business resource center and a food business licensing office. Savannah made the calls herself. She asked questions. She took notes. She corrected mistakes. And slowly Room to Rise Baking began acquiring something it had never possessed in Savannah's apartment: structure. Then came the numbers. Savannah sat at the commercial prep table one night with receipts spread around her. Flour, butter, eggs, packaging, kitchen costs, gas, insurance, her time. She calculated the real cost of producing 1 loaf. Then she stared at the answer. No. She calculated again. Same result. Savannah had been undercharging badly. She had priced her products according to what she feared people would refuse to pay, not what they actually cost to make. That realization embarrassed her. She had spent 8 years resenting employers for deciding what labor was worth. Then she had started a business and undervalued her own. Savannah raised her prices. 2 customers disappeared immediately. One messaged, "Too expensive now. Good luck." Savannah read it 3 times. Her instinct was to send a discount. Instead, she put the phone down. The following day, Mrs. Parker ordered anyway. So did Raymond. So did the nurses. Room to Rise did not collapse. It became smaller for several days. Then it grew again. Savannah used the commercial kitchen 4 evenings each week. Her apartment gradually became an apartment again. Flour disappeared from beneath the dining chairs. Boxes stopped covering the sofa. And for the first time, Savannah could bake 12 loaves in one cycle without rotating every pan. One Thursday evening, Claire stopped by. Savannah was sliding a tray into the oven. "How does it feel?" Savannah looked around. Expensive. Claire laughed. Anything else? Savannah considered it. Real? That word stayed with her. Room to Rise had begun as an emergency. Now Savannah had invoices, insurance, customers, a schedule, obligations. She also had fear, because something real could fail. At 9:14 that night, Savannah's phone rang. A woman named Linda Mercer introduced herself as the coordinator for a non-profit fundraising luncheon. Mrs. Parker had recommended Savannah. "We need dessert portions for Saturday next week. How many?" Savannah reached for her notebook. 180. Her pen stopped. Until then, Savannah's largest single order had been 24. "When would you need them?" "Saturday morning by 9. Savannah looked at the commercial ovens, then at the calendar. 180 portions. Enough revenue to cover nearly a month of her current kitchen costs. Enough work to expose every weakness in her tiny operation. "Can you handle that?" Linda asked. Savannah's first instinct was to say yes immediately. Her second was to remember the 48-loaf order she had refused. She asked questions instead. Flavors, packaging, allergies, delivery location, payment schedule. When she had everything, Savannah calculated quietly. This time she wasn't pricing from fear. She wasn't promising from desperation either. Finally, she gave Linda the quote. There was a pause. "That works for us." Savannah's heart jumped. "I'll send an invoice tonight. Wonderful, we're excited." After the call ended, Savannah remained beside the stainless steel table. 180. Her daughter kicked. Savannah looked down. "Yeah," she whispered. "I heard it too." She reached into her bag and removed Dorothy's dented measuring cup. For the first time since losing her job, Savannah wasn't wondering whether Room to Rise could survive. She was facing a different question. Could she grow fast enough without breaking the person doing the growing? By Wednesday night, Savannah had calculated the order 6 different ways. 180 dessert portions, 60 lemon brown butter slices, 60 cinnamon pecan squares, 60 vanilla berry cakes. On paper, it worked. That was the dangerous thing about paper. Paper did not have swollen ankles. Paper did not need sleep. Paper was not 7 months pregnant. Savannah arrived at Franklin Community Hall at 5:40 p.m. after spending the afternoon purchasing ingredients. By 6, butter was browning on 2 burners while the commercial ovens preheated. She had made a schedule. Wednesday, prepare dry ingredients and fillings. Thursday, bake. Friday, portion package label. Saturday, deliver. She could do this. At least that was what she kept telling herself. By 9:30, her back hurt. Savannah pulled out a chair, sat for 10 minutes, drank water, then stood again. At 11:08, she finally locked the kitchen. Thursday was worse. One supplier had substituted smaller berry containers, forcing Savannah to buy additional fruit elsewhere. A batch of pecan topping came out too dark. Savannah threw it away. For a moment, she stared at the wasted ingredients. She could have used them. Most customers probably would not notice. But she would. "Do it right," she whispered. She started again. At 10:46 p.m., Claire texted. Still there, Savannah looked at the message and typed, "Almost done." It wasn't true. There were 24 cakes left to bake. She deleted the message, then typed, "Yes." Claire replied, "Go home sometime this century." Savannah smiled, but she didn't go home. At 11:27, she bent to retrieve a tray from a lower shelf. When she stood, the room shifted. Savannah grabbed the stainless steel table. The oven seemed to move sideways. She closed her eyes. "Okay?" Her voice sounded far away. She sat down quickly. Her heart was racing. The baby moved. Savannah placed both hands over her stomach. "I'm okay." She wasn't sure whether she was reassuring the baby or herself. After several minutes, the dizziness eased. Savannah drank water. She should leave, she knew that. But the order was due Saturday. If she failed now, the customer might never call again. Room to Rise might lose the recommendation network that had taken weeks to build. Savannah stood. She reached for Dorothy's measuring cup. Her fingers missed the handle. The cup hit the tile. The metallic sound echoed through the kitchen. Savannah stared down at it. Something about seeing Dorothy's cup on the floor broke through her stubbornness. She lowered herself against a cabinet and sat. That was how Claire found her 15 minutes later. Claire had come because the community hall manager had reported a light malfunction near the rear entrance. When she opened the kitchen door, she stopped. Savannah looked up. "I'm fine." Claire stared at her sitting on the floor. "You have a fascinating definition of fine. I got dizzy." Claire crossed the room. "Do we need to call someone?" "No." It passed. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Claire crouched. Then she noticed the measuring cup on the floor. She picked it up and placed it beside Savannah. "How long have you been here?" Savannah didn't answer. "Savannah, since 5:40. Claire checked her watch. It was almost midnight. "You need to go home. I have an order. You have a child. I know that. Then act like it." Savannah's face hardened. "You think I don't care about my baby? No." Claire sat on the floor opposite her. "I think you're terrified." That landed differently. Savannah looked away. Claire continued more gently. "You're afraid if you slow down, everything disappears." Savannah swallowed. "You don't understand. I understand building a business while believing every customer is the last customer you'll ever get. This isn't the same." "No, you're right." Claire glanced at Savannah's stomach. "You have more at risk." Savannah pressed her palms against her eyes. "I can't afford employees. Have you calculated that I know what employees cost?" "That isn't what I asked." Savannah lowered her hands. Claire pointed around the kitchen. "How much does it cost when you ruin a batch because you're exhausted? How much if you miss a delivery? How much if you end up in the hospital?" Savannah had no answer. Claire stood. "You wanted a door, Savannah. You didn't ask me to carry you through it." "No." "Then stop trying to prove you can carry the entire building." The next morning, Savannah made a phone call. Patricia Hayes arrived at Franklin Community Hall at 2 that afternoon. She was 51, with short, natural curls and the cautious expression of someone who had been disappointed by employment promises before. Patricia had worked 12 years in a school cafeteria before budget cuts eliminated her position. Savannah did not say, "I need help." She conducted an interview. Food safety certification current. Commercial ovens. Every weekday for 12 years. Availability. Afternoons and evenings. Savannah explained the pay. Patricia raised an eyebrow. "You sure that's the rate?" "You could probably find somebody cheaper." "I probably could." "Then why don't you?" Savannah thought about Ethan. Because cheaper and fair aren't always the same thing. Patricia studied her. "When do I start?" Savannah looked at the mountain of ingredients. 10 minutes ago. Patricia laughed. They worked side by side. Savannah handled batter and quality control. Patricia portioned rotated trays and organized packaging with the ruthless efficiency of a woman who had once served lunch to 400 middle schoolers in 27 minutes. Friday night, Savannah left at 9:15, not midnight. Saturday morning, all 180 portions were ready. At 8:54, Savannah and Patricia delivered them to the non-profit luncheon. Linda Mercer opened one box. "These look beautiful." Savannah smiled. "Thank you." 3 hours later, Linda sent a message. "Everyone loved them. Several people asked who made them. I gave them your information." Savannah read it twice. Then she forwarded it to Patricia. Patricia replied, "Tell them your employee says thank you." Savannah laughed. Employee. The word felt enormous. That afternoon, another message arrived. It was from the coordinator of a local weekend farmers market. Linda had apparently given her Savannah's number. They had a vendor opening the following month. Would Room to Rise Baking be interested? Savannah placed her phone beside Dorothy's measuring cup. Only days earlier, she had believed growing meant proving she could carry everything alone. Now she understood something Dorothy had known all along. Anything packed too tightly had nowhere to expand. Sometimes leaving room to rise meant making room for someone beside you. Ethan Caldwell first saw the name Room to Rise Baking on a Tuesday morning. It was printed near the bottom of a vendor proposal on his conference table. He almost missed it. Caldwell Premier Catering had spent the previous 6 weeks fighting problems that seemed to multiply whenever Ethan solved another one. A corporate client had complained about late setup. 2 experienced prep cooks had resigned within 10 days of each other. An event captain had quit halfway through a wedding season, and Maya Brooks had just submitted her notice. Ethan stared at the letter on his desk. Another one. His operations manager nodded. She accepted a position at the university. Did we count her? She wasn't interested. Ethan leaned back. What is happening to everybody? The manager hesitated. That hesitation irritated him more than an answer would have. What people are tired, everybody is tired, yes. The manager left it there. Ethan rubbed his forehead. 6 months earlier, the company had been bleeding cash. 2 large clients had disappeared within the same quarter. Ingredient prices had risen. Vehicle repairs had been worse than forecast. He had responded the way he thought responsible owners responded. Cut labor, reduce overtime, combine positions, eliminate anything that did not directly protect revenue. The spreadsheet had improved. The company had not. Mistakes increased. Morale collapsed. Employees who remained were doing the work of people Ethan had removed. He told himself it was temporary. Temporary had lasted long enough to become culture. At 10:15, Ethan entered a planning meeting for the Livingston Foundation's annual donor reception. Their representative, Andrea Mills, slid a document toward him. We're comfortable keeping Caldwell Premier for the main catering. Ethan nodded. But we'd like to use a separate local bakery for dessert. His sales director leaned forward. We provide full dessert service. I know, but our committee wants this vendor. Andrea tapped the page. Room to Rise Baking. Ethan stopped. Savannah Walker. Her name appeared underneath. For a moment he was back in his office with a white envelope between them. Did my pregnancy factor into this decision? No. It's a business decision. Ethan closed the proposal. We'll review it. Andrea smiled politely. We'd prefer them specifically. After the meeting, Ethan searched the business online. There wasn't much. A modest community page, photographs from a farmer's market, plain boxes, rows of lemon loaves, then a photograph of Savannah behind a folding table. She was visibly pregnant. Beside her stood another woman wearing an apron. Both were smiling. Ethan stared longer than he intended. He had assumed Savannah would find another kitchen job. He had never considered that she might build one. That evening, Ethan found Claire reading in the living room. Did you know Savannah Walker started a bakery? Claire turned a page. Yes. How I bought something from her. Ethan stared. You knew, yes. And you didn't tell me Claire closed the book. Why would I? Ethan's jaw tightened. Because she worked for our company. She doesn't anymore. He heard the accusation even though Claire had not raised her voice. Did you help her? Claire looked at him carefully. What do you mean by help? Did you give her money? Then what? Claire hesitated only a moment. I gave her access to the Franklin kitchen. Ethan stood. You did what my family holds the lease. You went behind my back to help someone. I terminated. Claire's expression changed. You terminated her employment, Ethan. You did not acquire authority over the rest of her life. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Ethan paced towards the window. We are struggling to keep our company alive, and you're using resources to support someone who could now become a competitor. Claire almost laughed. A woman selling lemon loaves at a farmer's market is the reason Caldwell Premier is struggling. That's not the point. No, the point is that you're angry because someone you dismissed didn't disappear. Ethan turned. You think I enjoyed firing people? I think you stopped seeing them. Silence. Ethan's face hardened. You haven't been involved in daily operations for years. Claire absorbed the blow. It was true. That made it hurt more. No, she said. I haven't. So you don't know what the last 6 months have been like. Then tell me. Ethan looked away. For the first time, his anger weakened. We were close. To what missing payroll? Claire went still. Ethan sat. One more major client leaving would have put us there. Maybe worse. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought I could fix it. Claire understood that sentence too well. So you cut people. I cut costs. People were the costs. Ethan didn't answer. I was trying to save the company. I believe you. He looked surprised. Claire moved closer. But fear doesn't become wisdom just because you put numbers around it. Ethan's eyes lowered. I had 37 employees depending on this place. And how many are left? He didn't answer. Ethan, you were so afraid of losing the company that you started destroying the reason we built it. That struck somewhere deeper. Years ago, Ethan had worked for a catering owner who changed schedules without notice and withheld raises while buying himself a second car. Ethan used to swear their company would be different. Claire saw the memory cross his face. You remember what we said in that church kitchen, she asked. Ethan remained silent. We said if we ever had employees, we'd remember what it felt like to be the person nobody asked. Ethan rubbed his hands together. I made decisions I thought I had to make. Maybe some cuts were necessary. Claire paused. But necessary decisions can still be made badly. Ethan looked toward the dark window. What did you give Savannah a kitchen? For free, no. That surprised him. She pays operating costs. She has a contract. No investment. No ownership from me. Why? Claire told him about the break room, the pregnancy loss, the lemon loaf, the young employee who had seen a hungry woman instead of the owner's grieving wife. When Claire finished, Ethan looked ashamed. I didn't know, that Claire said subtly, is becoming the problem. The next morning, Ethan returned to work early. For once, he did not go directly to his office. He walked through the prep kitchen. Several faces turned away. He noticed an empty station where Maya used to work. He noticed one employee covering 2 positions. He noticed things that had existed yesterday. He simply had not looked. At 9:30, his sales director entered his office carrying the Livingston Foundation proposal. They need confirmation today. Ethan looked at the dessert section. Room to rise baking. For the first time since firing Savannah, Ethan understood that he might have to sit across from her again. But this time there would be no white envelope on his desk. Savannah would not be asking him to keep her job. If Caldwell Premier wanted what she had built, Ethan would have to ask her. Savannah almost declined the meeting. When Ethan Caldwell's name appeared in her inbox, she read the message twice, closed her phone, and continued labeling boxes. 10 minutes later, she opened it again. Caldwell Premier Catering had been selected for the Livingston Foundation donor reception. The client wanted Room to Rise Baking to provide dessert. Ethan wanted to discuss terms. Patricia noticed Savannah staring at the screen. Bad news, not sure. Savannah handed her the phone. Patricia read it. Well, that's all. What do you want me to say? Savannah returned to the boxes. I don't know. Patricia placed the phone down. You planning to say no? I thought about it. Because you can't handle the order, no. Because they don't pay no? Patricia raised an eyebrow. Then don't confuse pride with principles. Savannah looked at her. I got fired from that place while pregnant. I know. And now they want to buy from me. Sounds expensive. Savannah laughed despite herself. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2:00 p.m. Savannah arrived at Caldwell Premier, carrying a folder. The receptionist recognized her. So did 2 employees passing through the lobby. Their expressions carried the awkwardness people wore when they remembered watching someone leave and had not known what to say. Savannah did not resent them. Fear made witnesses quiet. She understood that now. Ethan was waiting in a conference room rather than his private office. That mattered to Savannah more than she expected. There was no desk dividing them. Savannah, Mr. Caldwell, Ethan is fine, I know. He almost smiled. They sat. Ethan looked different, not transformed, just tired in a less defensive way. Thank you for coming. Your email said Livingston specifically requested us. They did. Then let's talk about Livingston. Ethan nodded. Business. Savannah could do business. She opened her folder. Their coordinator told me they expect approximately 260 guests. 250 confirmed. We're planning 10% over. 3 dessert selections. Yes. Savannah asked about delivery time, serving format, refrigeration, and allergy requirements. Ethan answered. For 15 minutes, they discussed nothing except the event. Then Savannah slid a printed quote across the table. Ethan read it. His eyebrows moved. This is higher than I expected. Savannah waited. Our usual dessert cost is lower. Then you have an in-house option. The client wants room to rise. Yes. Ethan looked again. Can you come down 10% no? The answer came without anger. Ethan leaned back. No flexibility. There's flexibility in quantity, packaging, and menu selection, not in whether I pay people properly. Ethan's eyes lifted. Savannah opened another page. This is ingredient cost. This is kitchen expense, packaging, delivery, insurance, labor. She tapped each line. The price includes all of it. You're including your own labor at that rate? Yes. Most new businesses don't. Most new businesses should. Ethan stared at the sheet. Savannah continued. I made that mistake when I started. I priced everything according to what I thought people wouldn't be afraid to pay. And now I price according to what it costs to do the work properly. Something in Ethan's expression changed. Perhaps he remembered the conversation in his office. Labor requirements, business decision. Savannah certainly did. He placed the quote down. I owe you an apology. Savannah had not expected that. She said nothing. Ethan looked directly at her. The way your termination was handled was wrong. Savannah's fingers rested against the folder. I was trying to keep the company alive, but I used that fear to justify treating people like numbers. He stopped. Savannah waited for the word, but it did not come. Still, she wasn't ready to make his guilt easier. Thank you for saying that. Ethan nodded. She did not tell him everything was fine. It wasn't. An apology could acknowledge a wound. It could not erase one. Ethan returned to the quote. So this is your final rate? It is. He studied it once more, then reached for a pen. Okay. Savannah watched him sign. The sound of the pen moving across paper was almost absurdly ordinary. But she remembered another piece of paper between them. A white envelope. 8 years of work reduced to a decision she had no power to negotiate. Now the paper on the table meant something different. Ethan slid the signed agreement toward her. Savannah checked the signature. Then she signed for Room to Rise Baking. No celebration, no triumphant speech, just 2 signatures. When the meeting ended, Ethan walked her toward the lobby. Near the old prep kitchen entrance, Savannah slowed. Through the small window, she could see employees moving between stainless steel tables. For a moment, muscle memory pulled at her. She knew where the gloves were stored, which refrigerator door stuck in humid weather, which prep sink drained slowly. Ethan noticed her looking. If you ever wanted to come back in some capacity, Savannah turned. No. Ethan stopped. She wasn't offended. She simply wanted the boundary understood. I'm not coming back as an employee. I didn't mean I know. Savannah held up the signed contract. If Caldwell Premier wants something from Room to Rise, you can call us. Us. The word surprised even her. Savannah Walker. Patricia Hayes. Room to Rise. A business large enough now to contain a word like us. Ethan nodded. Understood. Savannah walked toward the exit. Outside afternoon sunlight covered the parking lot where she had once sat crying behind the steering wheel of her Honda Civic. The same car was parked 3 rows away. The check engine light still came on. She still had bills. Room to Rise was nowhere near secure. Nothing magical had happened. But when Savannah reached her car, she did not feel like the woman who had left this building carrying a termination envelope. Her phone rang. "Patricia." "Well," Patricia demanded, "we got it." "At your price." Savannah looked through the glass doors at Ethan standing inside. "At our price." Patricia shouted loudly enough that Savannah pulled the phone away from her ear. Savannah laughed. Then another sensation stopped her. A tightening low in her abdomen. She placed a hand against the car. It passed after several seconds. Savannah exhaled. "Everything okay?" Patricia asked. "Yeah." "You sure?" Savannah looked down at her stomach. Probably just Braxton Hicks. But that night the tightening came again. And the next morning it came sooner. Room to Rise had just landed its most important contract. Savannah's daughter, however, seemed to have her own schedule. At 3:42 the following afternoon, Savannah stopped in the middle of measuring flour. The pain began low in her abdomen and tightened around her back. She gripped the stainless steel table. Patricia looked up from a tray of pecans. "What nothing? That wasn't a nothing face." Savannah breathed slowly. The pressure faded. She straightened. "Braxton Hicks, you a doctor now?" "No." "Then stop diagnosing yourself." Savannah reached for Dorothy's measuring cup. They had work to do. The Livingston Foundation reception was still days away, but several smaller orders had to leave the kitchen tomorrow. Savannah scooped flour. Patricia watched her. "You've had those before yesterday. How many, Patricia? How many?" Savannah sighed. 4, maybe 5. Patricia put down the tray. "And today I'm fine. You keep using that word like it'll become true if you say it enough." Savannah almost laughed. Then another contraction came. This one was stronger. The measuring cup slipped from her hand and landed on the table. Savannah closed her eyes. Patricia checked the clock. "That's 12 minutes. What since the last one?" Savannah stared at her. "You were timing them." "Somebody had to. I'm not—" "Babies don't read calendars." Savannah's first thought was not the hospital. It was the orders. "We have 36 lemon portions due tomorrow." Patricia stared at her. "Savannah. And the Henderson order needs the berry cakes boxed tonight." "Savannah. The invoice." "Your baby is trying to enter the world, and you're talking to me about an invoice." Savannah looked down at her stomach. Fear finally broke through the work. "Too early." The phrase echoed in her head. "What if something's wrong?" Patricia's expression softened immediately. "Then we find out." Savannah nodded. She reached for her phone. Another contraction stopped her halfway. Patricia was already moving. "I'm driving. I have my car. You are not driving. What about the kitchen? I know the schedule. You don't know where the berry labels are in the second drawer. Henderson's order is on the clipboard. Lemon batter gets baked at 350 rotated after 20 minutes. Savannah blinked. Patricia picked up her purse. "I do actually work here." That sentence landed. Savannah had spent months building Room to Rise. Somewhere along the way, she had forgotten that building something also meant allowing it to exist. Just without her hands touching every piece. At the hospital, Savannah was admitted for observation. The contractions continued. A nurse adjusted a monitor across her stomach while Savannah stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed repeatedly on the bedside table. "Patricia, Mrs. Parker, a supplier." Savannah reached for it. The nurse gently moved it away. "Give us 20 minutes. My business will still exist in 20 minutes. Savannah almost said, "You don't know that," but she was beginning to realize she didn't know it either. An hour later, the doctor confirmed labor was progressing. Savannah's face went pale. "Yes." "How early is too early?" The doctor answered carefully, explaining what they were monitoring and what the neonatal team would be prepared for. Savannah listened. For once, she could not solve the problem with discipline. She could not price it, schedule it, bake it again if the first batch failed. She could only wait and trust people who knew more than she did. At 7:18 p.m., Patricia called. Savannah answered immediately. What happened? Hello to you too. The order's done. All of them Henderson is boxed. Tomorrow's lemon portions are cooling. I moved the Saturday prep according to your sheet. Savannah closed her eyes. Patricia, and before you ask, I called Renee. Renee was the part-time assistant Savannah had hired for market weekends. She came in at 6. You called her yes, boss. Savannah laughed weakly. Then tears came. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. Then be there. I can't lose this. Patricia understood exactly what she meant. Not the orders. Everything. You're not losing it, Patricia said. You built instructions. You trained people. You paid us to care about doing it right. Now let us do our jobs. Savannah covered her eyes. All right. That's the smartest thing you've said today. 2 hours later, Claire arrived. She carried no flowers, no balloons, only a small brown paper bag. You left this. Claire reached inside. Dorothy's dented measuring cup. Savannah took it with both hands. I dropped it. Patricia found it. Savannah ran her thumb over the bent handle. Claire sat beside the bed. For a moment, neither spoke. Hospitals still carried memories Claire rarely discussed. Savannah knew enough now not to fill the silence. Eventually, Claire said, You scared, yes. Good. Savannah looked at her. Claire gave a tired smile. Means you understand this matters. Savannah squeezed the cup. What if I'm not ready? Claire looked toward the monitor. I don't think ready is usually how important things arrive. Labor intensified after midnight. Savannah stopped checking her phone. For the first time since Room to Rise began, the bakery existed completely outside her attention. And it survived. At 4:36 a.m., Savannah heard a cry, small, sharp, alive. Her entire body went still. A nurse lifted a tiny baby toward her. Savannah began sobbing before anyone said anything. Her daughter was early, but breathing well. The medical team checked her carefully before finally bringing her close. Savannah touched one trembling finger to the baby's cheek. Hi. The baby opened her mouth in protest. Savannah laughed through tears. Yeah, I know. Rough more. Hours later, when the room had quieted, Claire returned briefly. Does she have a name? Savannah looked at the baby sleeping against her chest. Lucy. Claire smiled. Lucy Walker. Savannah nodded. My grandmother was Dorothy Lucille Walker. She looked at the dented measuring cup on the bedside table. Dorothy's hands had held it. Savannah's hands had held it. Someday, perhaps Lucy's would too. The phone buzzed. A photograph from Patricia showed rows of completed Room to Rise boxes ready for pickup. Everything was still standing. Savannah looked at her daughter. For months she had thought Room to Rise meant finding space for herself. Now she understood another meaning. Sometimes love meant building something strong enough that you could loosen your grip. Sometimes growth meant trusting other hands. Savannah kissed Lucy's forehead. For once she had nowhere else she needed to be. 11 days after Lucy came home from the hospital, Savannah opened her laptop at 2:13 in the morning. The apartment was silent. Lucy had finally fallen asleep in a bassinet beside the bed after 40 minutes of crying for reasons Savannah could not identify. Savannah should have slept too. Instead, she checked Room to Rise. 23 unread emails, 4 new order inquiries, 2 supplier invoices, a message from the farmer's market. Savannah's chest tightened. She opened the scheduling file. Patricia and Renee had kept everything running. Existing orders had gone out. The Livingston Foundation reception had been completed without a complaint. By every reasonable measure, that was good news. Savannah experienced it as panic. What if customers preferred Patricia? What if quality slipped? What if people stopped associating Room to Rise with Savannah? What if the small thing she had built while terrified disappeared because she allowed herself to become unavailable? She opened a new message. I can return for limited hours. Monday, Lucy made a tiny sound. Savannah stopped typing. She looked toward the bassinet. then back at the screen. At 8:07 the next morning, Patricia called. "You emailed me at 2:30. I was awake. I assumed that part. I can come in Monday." "No." Savannah blinked. "Excuse me, no. Patricia, I own the business. And right now you're on maternity leave from the business you own. I never officially established maternity leave." "Then congratulations." "I just did." Savannah almost laughed. "I'm serious. So am I, Patricia. We can't afford for me to disappear. You aren't disappearing. You had a baby. I can handle a few hours." Patricia was quiet. Then she said, "You know why my cafeteria job ended? Budget cuts. That's how it ended. That's not why I stopped loving it." Savannah waited. For years, whenever someone called out sick, we were expected to cover. Somebody's kid had a fever. Management acted like she'd committed fraud. Surgery. They wanted to know how fast you could stand again. Patricia paused. Eventually, everybody came to work sick because nobody wanted to be the person who caused trouble. Savannah looked at the unfinished email. Patricia continued. "You told me Room to Rise was going to be different." "It is." "Then prove it to yourself first." That irritated Savannah because it was true. "I'm the owner." "Exactly. Whatever you do becomes permission." Savannah said nothing. "If this place only works when you break yourself, Patricia said you didn't build a business. You built another cage." The word stayed with Savannah all day. Another cage. She thought about Caldwell Premier Catering. Ethan had not started as a cruel employer. Fear had changed the rules one decision at a time, one shortened shift, one eliminated position, one exhausted employee expected to absorb somebody else's work. Savannah had promised herself Room to Rise would be different. But promises were easy before they cost anything. That afternoon she deleted the email. She stayed home. Not forever, long enough. When Savannah returned several weeks later, she did not begin by increasing production. She began by changing policies. Room to Rise was still tiny. There was no human resources department, no legal team, no corporate handbook, just Savannah, Patricia, Renee, and several pages in a binder. But Savannah wrote down what she wanted the company to become before growth made those decisions harder. Scheduled breaks. Paid sick time within what the business could sustainably afford. Advance notice for schedule changes whenever possible. No routine work messages after hours. Flexible shifts for caregivers. Clear hourly pay. Savannah even wrote a rule for herself. The owner is not an emergency staffing plan. Patricia read it. That one's my favorite. I knew it would be. Growth slowed. Savannah turned down orders she could have accepted if everyone worked longer. For a while, she wondered whether she was making a terrible mistake. Then something unexpected happened. People stayed. Renee declined another bakery job because Room to Rise respected her class schedule. Patricia stopped checking her phone on days off. Customers began recognizing the same faces at the farmer's market. Consistency improved. So did the baking. Across town, Ethan Caldwell was learning a similar lesson from the opposite direction. He asked Maya to meet him for coffee before she started her new university job. She almost refused. Then curiosity won. Ethan did not ask her to return. Instead, he asked one question. "What did I miss?" Maya stared at him. "How much time do you have?" "Of as much as it takes." So she told him. People were afraid to call in sick. Supervisors stopped reporting equipment problems because budgets were always denied. Experienced employees were carrying 2 jobs. Nobody believed management wanted bad news. And Savannah Ethan asked eventually. Maya's expression hardened. "You want the polite version, no. You made everybody understand loyalty only worked one direction." Ethan looked down. That sentence followed him back to Caldwell Premier. Changing the company was slower than cutting it had been. He restored staffing where he could. He began holding short meetings with employees without managers present. He created a system for reporting workload problems. Some workers remained skeptical. They had earned that skepticism. Ethan accepted it. An apology could be spoken in 30 seconds. Trust had to survive Tuesdays. At Room to Rise, Savannah returned gradually. 3 hours became 4. 4 became a full shift. But she no longer stayed until midnight simply because work existed. One evening at 5:47, Savannah was reviewing the next day's production list when Patricia took the clipboard from her. "What are you doing closing? I can stay another hour." "You could." Patricia hung the clipboard on its hook. "But Lucy is waiting." Savannah looked toward the ovens. Nothing was behind. No emergency. No disaster. Just the old instinct telling her that leaving meant failing. She removed her apron. "Call me if something happens." "I won't. What if something actually happens? I'll call the fire department." Savannah laughed. She picked up her bag. Dorothy's measuring cup remained on the shelf. For years, Savannah had carried it everywhere. Tonight she left it in the kitchen. Patricia noticed. Neither woman said anything. At 6:18, Savannah unlocked her apartment door. Lucy was awake in her bassinet, waving both fists at the ceiling. Savannah lifted her. "Hey, baby." Lucy stared at her, then smiled. Savannah felt something inside her loosen. Room to Rise was still open. The ovens were still warm. Someone else would lock the door, and Savannah was exactly where she needed to be. 1 year after Savannah Walker sat at her kitchen table counting $23, she stood beneath a crooked wooden sign that read "Room to Rise Baking" and tried not to cry. The new bakery was not impressive by the standards of business magazines. It occupied a narrow storefront on a side street in Columbus between a laundromat and a family-owned pharmacy. The floorboards creaked near the register. The tables did not match because Savannah had bought them secondhand from 3 different sellers. One wall still needed another coat of paint. The espresso machine was refurbished, and the production schedule behind the counter was written by hand. Savannah loved every imperfect inch. "Stop staring and unlock the door," Patricia called from the kitchen. "I'm appreciating it. You can appreciate it with customers inside." Savannah smiled. Lucy sat in a high chair near the back office, banging a wooden spoon against the tray, while Renee attempted to convince her that the spoon was not breakfast. Savannah walked toward the register. Beside it stood a small glass display box. Inside was Dorothy Walker's dented measuring cup. Next to it lay $23. A 10, another 10, 3 ones. Not the original bills. Those had disappeared into flour, butter, and lemons long ago. Savannah had replaced them with the same denominations. Patricia had questioned the idea. "You know somebody's going to ask why you keep $23 under glass. Then I'll tell them that you started with $23 no." Savannah had looked at the display. That $23 was enough to make one decision. That's all. She hated stories that made hardship sound romantic. $23 had not built Room to Rise. Work had. Customers had. Patricia and Renee had. Claire's kitchen had. Mistakes had. Rest had. So had Savannah's decision to keep going when going forward was neither glamorous nor certain. At 9:00 a.m., she unlocked the door. The first customers were people who had been there when Room to Rise was nothing but handwritten names on plain boxes. Mr. Lewis arrived from the auto shop. Raymond brought his mother. Several nurses from Riverside came after a night shift. Mrs. Parker bought 2 lemon loaves and loudly told anyone within hearing distance that she had discovered Savannah before everybody else. By 11, every table was occupied. Claire arrived shortly afterward. She did not bring flowers. She bought a box. Savannah noticed. "You don't get free lemon loaf today." Claire handed over her credit card. "Absolutely not. You gave me a commercial kitchen, and you paid for it." Savannah smiled. "Fair." Claire looked toward the glass display. Her eyes stopped on the measuring cup. And the money, $23. Claire understood immediately. The beginning. Savannah shook her head. The decision. Claire looked at her. Savannah continued. "I don't want Lucy growing up hearing that $23 magically became this place. She gestured around the bakery. It didn't. What do you want her to hear? That sometimes you don't need enough to see the whole road. You need enough for the next honest step. Claire's eyes softened. I like that better. So do I. Around noon, the front door opened again. Ethan Caldwell stepped inside. Savannah saw him immediately. He wore no suit jacket, only dark trousers and a pale blue shirt, with the sleeves rolled once at the wrists. He stayed near the entrance. Claire noticed him, but did not wave. Savannah appreciated that. This was not Claire's moment to manage, and it was not Ethan's. Patricia appeared beside Savannah. You want me to throw him out in our offer stands? I know. Ethan waited until the line disappeared. Then he approached the counter. Congratulations. Thank you. He looked around. You did all this in a year, we did. Savannah emphasized the word without meaning to. Ethan nodded toward Patricia and Renee. Looks like you built something good. We're trying. There was an awkward silence. Then Ethan asked, Could I speak with you for a minute? Savannah led him toward a small table near the window. Ethan sat. For several seconds he watched pedestrians outside. Then he turned toward her. I've rehearsed this too many times, so I'm probably going to ruin it. Savannah waited. The day I fired you, I treated 8 years of your work like a number I needed off a spreadsheet. He swallowed. I was afraid of losing the company. I told myself that made everything I did necessary. Savannah remained silent. I was wrong in the way I treated you. There was no but. No explanation following the apology. Ethan continued. You asked whether your pregnancy mattered. I told you it didn't. Maybe I believed that. But I also never stopped to consider what losing insurance and income at that moment actually meant for you. Savannah looked toward Lucy. Her daughter had fallen asleep against Renee's shoulder. I can't undo it, Ethan said. No, I know. Savannah appreciated that he did not ask her to absolve him. I accept your apology. Relief appeared on his face. Savannah added, That doesn't mean what happened was okay. I understand. And I don't want you using this bakery as proof that firing me worked out for the best. Ethan looked ashamed. I won't. Good, because Savannah knew how easily people rewrote suffering once it produced a beautiful ending. She had succeeded after Ethan fired her. Not because he fired her. Those were different truths. Ethan stood. Before leaving, he stopped at the counter and bought a lemon loaf. Patricia charged him full price. Savannah suspected she enjoyed that. Late that afternoon, the crowd finally thinned. Savannah stood behind the register while golden sunlight stretched across the floor. Lucy woke and began laughing at something Patricia was doing in the kitchen. Savannah turned towards the sound. Then her eyes moved to the glass display. The dented measuring cup. $23. A year earlier, both had sat on the cheap kitchen table beside a termination envelope. Savannah touched the glass. She no longer saw $23 as proof of how little she had possessed. She saw it as proof that beginnings were often too small to look important. Behind her, the oven timer rang. Savannah smiled and walked toward the kitchen. Tomorrow, Room to Rise would open again, and soon another woman would walk through its door carrying a fear Savannah recognized immediately. 3 months after Room to Rise opened its storefront, Jasmine Reed walked through the door, wearing a coat she did not need. Columbus was warm that afternoon. Everyone else outside wore short sleeves, but Jasmine kept the coat buttoned across her stomach. Savannah noticed immediately, not because she was staring, because she remembered doing similar things. Jasmine waited until the last customer left the counter. Are you hiring? Savannah looked at her. Depends. What position are you looking for? Anything? That isn't a position. Jasmine's face fell slightly. Savannah softened her voice. Have a seat. They took the small table beside the window. Jasmine was 27. She had worked nearly 4 years at a diner before losing her job when new management reduced staff. Savannah listened. What did you do there? Started serving. Then some prep. What kind? Biscuits, pie fillings, breakfast prep. Food safety certification expired last year. Savannah wrote that down. Jasmine glanced toward this kitchen. I learn fast. Good. And I can work hard. Also good. Savannah asked about availability. Jasmine hesitated. Anything you need. Savannah put down her pen. What hours can you actually work? Jasmine looked embarrassed. Morning would be easier. Why her hand moved unconsciously toward her coat. Then she stopped hiding. I'm pregnant. Savannah already knew. How far along? 25 weeks. Congratulations. Jasmine looked surprised. That's it. What else should I say? I've had 3 interviews. Savannah waited. At one place, the manager looked at my stomach before he looked at my resume. Her voice tightened. Another said they needed someone reliable. Savannah understood the implication. Pregnant had become unreliable without Jasmine missing a single shift. So you kept the coat on, Savannah said. Jasmine looked down. Yeah. Savannah glanced toward the glass box near the register. $23. Dorothy's measuring cup. For a moment she saw Ethan's office again. The white envelope. It's a business decision. But Savannah also remembered something Patricia had taught her. Compassion was not the same as lowering standards. She would not hire Jasmine because she was pregnant. That would turn her into another symbol instead of an employee. What do you want to learn? Savannah asked. Jasmine looked confused. What you told me, what you've done. What do you want to learn? Nobody had asked her that. Baking, Jasmine said finally. Real baking. Not frozen pies. Anything else? Maybe ordering. Inventory. Savannah nodded. Why? Jasmine looked toward the kitchen again. My mom used to sell sweet potato pies around Thanksgiving. I always thought maybe someday I could do something like that. Your own business, maybe. The word came out cautiously as though saying it too loudly might embarrass her. Savannah smiled. Morning shifts. Yes, 4 days I can do that. Savannah explained the hourly rate, then the break policy, then sick time, then scheduling. Jasmine stared at her. You're offering me the job. I'm offering you a 30-day training period for a part-time prep position. Jasmine's eyes filled. Savannah raised one finger. Don't make me regret it by crying before you've filled out your paperwork. Jasmine laughed and wiped her face. I don't need anybody feeling sorry for me. Good. Savannah closed the folder. We don't have a position for that. Jasmine started the following Monday. Her first morning was mostly ordinary. She labeled containers incorrectly, forgot where parchment paper was stored, nearly put cinnamon in a container marked nutmeg. Patricia corrected her without ceremony. By noon, Jasmine was learning lemon loaf batter. Savannah stood beside her. Don't beat it. I'm not. You're threatening it. Jasmine slowed. Fold, Savannah demonstrated. When the batter was ready, Jasmine began filling the loaf pans. 1, 3. Savannah watched the fourth. Stop. Jasmine froze. What too much? It'll make a bigger loaf. Savannah smiled. She walked toward the register. Inside the glass display rested Dorothy's measuring cup. Savannah opened the case and took it out. Patricia noticed from across the kitchen. You're putting the museum piece back to work. It was never a museum piece. Savannah returned to Jasmine. She used the dented cup to remove some batter. Jasmine frowned. That looks low. It isn't? Why leave the space? Savannah stopped. There it was. A question she had once asked Dorothy. A question that had followed her from a yellow kitchen table to Ethan's office, from $23 to Franklin Community Hall, from the hospital to this bakery. Savannah ran her thumb across the bent handle. My grandmother used to say, leave a little room for it to rise. Jasmine looked at the pan. For the cake at first. Patricia smiled from across the room. Savannah slid the pan toward Jasmine. You'll understand. They placed the loaves into the oven. 20 minutes later, the kitchen smelled of lemon and brown butter. Lucy sat nearby in her high chair, banging a wooden spoon against the tray, while Patricia pretended to conduct an orchestra. The front bell rang. Claire entered. "Please tell me there are lemon loaves left. You're getting predictable," Savannah called. "I can live with that." Claire approached the counter as a customer. Nothing more needed to be said about what had passed between them. Years earlier, Savannah had given Claire a slice of cake when Claire needed 5 quiet minutes of dignity. Claire later opened a kitchen door when Savannah needed space. Now Savannah had opened another door, not by handing Jasmine money, not by promising life would be easy, by offering fair work, clear expectations, and room to learn. The oven timer rang. Jasmine opened the door carefully. The loaves had risen above the edges of the pans, golden and rounded, without spilling over. Her face brightened. "Oh," Savannah smiled. "Now you understand." Jasmine looked at her. "I think I'm starting to." Near the register, $23 remained behind glass. Savannah sometimes wondered what would have happened if she had spent that money differently. There was no answer. Life did not reveal alternate endings. What she knew was simpler. $23 had not saved her. Claire had not saved her. Even room to rise had not saved her. Savannah had been given opportunities, and she had worked to turn them into choices. That was different. She looked at Jasmine, at Patricia, at Claire, at Lucy, then at Dorothy's measuring cup resting on the flour-dusted table. Once Savannah had believed survival meant holding on as tightly as possible. Now she knew better. Some things grew because you held them. Others grew because you finally gave them space. And sometimes the greatest kindness one person could offer another was not to carry them toward a better life. It was simply to make sure the door wasn't locked, to step aside, and leave a little room for them to rise. Some people will look at Savannah's story and say losing her job was a blessing in disguise. But that would miss the point. What happened to her was unfair. Fear, financial insecurity, and losing employment while pregnant did not become good simply because something meaningful eventually grew afterward. Pain does not need to be romanticized before courage can matter. Savannah's strength was not that she never needed anyone. She did. Patricia gave her reliable hands. Claire gave her access to a kitchen. Customers gave her trust. Savannah learned from all of them. But none of those people took ownership of her future. That is what meaningful kindness can look like. Sometimes helping someone does not mean carrying them. It means removing one unnecessary barrier, treating their work with dignity, paying them fairly, or simply seeing potential where everyone else sees inconvenience. Years earlier, Savannah gave Claire one quiet slice of cake without expecting anything back. Claire later opened a door for Savannah, and when Jasmine arrived, frightened and pregnant, Savannah kept that door open for someone else. Kindness had completed its circle. If someone once gave you your own room to rise, tell us about them in the comments. And if this story reminded you of someone who needs encouragement today, share it with them. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories about dignity, second chances, and the quiet choices that can change a life.